Do you ever feel limited by rules or restrictions? I'm sure we all have. There are some restrictions that are good. For example, speed limits. They help keep us safe. There are also some rules that put limits on us. For instance, my dad has made it perfectly clear I'm not allowed to date until I'm 45. I feel like that limits my opportunity to get married in my 30s. Also, did you know that there is a law in Georgia that forbids you to carry ice cream in your back pocket if it is a sundae? I may need to keep that in mind since I do live in Georgia. These may be humorous examples, but Scripture clearly shows how God's own people felt limited not only by rules, but by their own strength. Joshua 10 tells the story of the deceptive Gibeonites who formed an alliance with Joshua. They were about to be attacked by the Amorites and pleaded for Joshua's help. When the day seemed like it was about to end, and Joshua and the Gibeonites were running out of time, they felt limited, expecting defeat. But God miraculously made the day longer by ordering the sun to stand still, which helped Joshua defeat the enemy. Scientifically, it is impossible for the earth to stop rotating. Yet Scripture tells us in Joshua 10:13, "So the sun stood still and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself on its enemies." When God does what seems impossible in our human realm, He shows us how limitless His power is. It was the year 1944. Corrie ten Boom and her family were just arrested for hiding Jews in their home. To say prison put a limit on her life is an understatement. She had seen the most evil and horrid things that included severe human abuse, deplorable conditions, and witnessing her family die. Corrie was at rock bottom, and she could have just given up at that point. Yet Corrie was willing to do whatever it took to glorify God. She witnessed to fellow prisoners, prayed constantly, and believed that God would deliver her from the grips of an evil German concentration camp. This famous quote by Corrie illustrates her victory over limitations. Faith sees the invisible, believes the unbelievable, and receives the impossible. Years after her release, Corrie gave many accounts of her ability to forgive despite her horrific experience. In February 2006, my family and I were moving 700 miles away. The news of moving caused me to become so frustrated with my parents and God. A month later, we left to start a new life in Georgia. I thought I would never have close relationships like I had in Ohio, but God and His limitless power didn't allow that. The very day we were moving into my new home, kids from the neighborhood came to welcome my family and me to our new address. That may not seem like a big deal to you, but God used those kids to speak the message of Proverbs 3:5 to a broken-hearted 7-year-old. It was in that moment that I realized I needed to trust the Lord with all my heart and lean not on my own understanding. Despite my initial opposition, God has now brought me closer to His purpose for my life than I have ever been. As Christians, we need to ask ourselves, what is limiting us today? Your finances, relationships, or even a bad report from the doctor. Some of us may be struggling with trusting God to bring us through a tough situation, but I want to encourage you today that our God has limitless power. We need to trust Him completely and put the situation in His hands. He can do things beyond our reach. Ephesians 3:20 says, "Now unto Him who is able to do immeasurably more than we could ever ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us." God's power for believers is unending and beyond our comprehension. His power is limitless.
Yeah, girl.